Well, welcome everyone to Life Lessons with Dr. Cunningham, where who you are matters more than what you do. And I am so excited today to introduce to you all Anthony Oliver. He is a fellow cousin of mine and an author. He is currently a doctoral student of leadership at Liberty University and has recently written a book. And the book is called The Book of Oliver. So, hey, Anthony, how you doing today?
I am doing well. Before we even get started, I just want to thank you, Dr. Cunningham, for the privilege to come on your show. I've watched it for a while and I've seen all the progression. I'm just glad to be here, glad to talk about the book with a fellow author.
Yes, awesome. And I'm very glad that you're here. I'm excited that you accepted the invitation. Sincerely, surrounded by all these very important people that have busy schedules. So y'all making time for my little self. I'm
No,
very
of
thankful.
course,
All right.
of course.
And so, I'm looking forward to the discussion that we're going to have today regarding your book and the Book of Oliver, and just the fact that you utilize your name. I'm like, what is the book about? So tell us about your book.
So this is, and I don't know if you can see it, Book of Oliver. This is my initial project, and the reason for the Book of Oliver, it's an ode to my family. I wanted to keep my family name alive. So hence, the Book of Oliver. And what it basically is, it's inspirational quotes that I've heard along the way. And I've coined the term motivational awakening. And I'll tell you what that means. And I'm sure you know this, Dr. Cutter, a lot of people use the term motivation or inspiration. But I feel when somebody tells you something, and it may be something that you don't like, it awakens something inside of you. So I coined the term motivational awakenings. And it's basically quotes and inspiration that people have taught me over the years. I'm more of a listener than a speaker. So I've sort of saved all those quotes and all the wisdom over the years in my head, and I put them together in this project. And definitely it has all my family members in it, and just appreciation for all the people who poured into my life, for pastors, for teachers, for coaches. And yes, my initial project, I always known I've been a good writer, but I always knew I didn't like to write. So, hence why it took so long. It's been 4 years in the making. I'd write, I'd put it down, I'd pick it up, and I finally made it to completion. It just released, and I'm glad to talk more about it.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you're here to talk about it, and I'm also very glad to hear about what you coined. Awakening. What's the first part of it again?
Motivational awakening.
Motivational awakening. I love hearing new coined phrases. And so I'm actually going to utilize that, but I'll make sure that I say that it was from Anthony Oliver to represent the family name, and at the same time, I heard you say too, that you are also a listener. And so I'm wondering, how was that particular skill set beneficial to you as an author?
Definitely. Now, what I've learned over the years is there's a difference between hearing and intentionally listening. So that means, I'm more introvert. I'm less of a speaker. I'll say less, but I'm taking everything I'm hearing and I'm compartmentalizing in my head. So you may say something to me 2 weeks ago, and it may pop into my head today, like, oh yeah, Dr. Cunningham told me this important wisdom. And that's sort of how I came up with all my quotes and, put them together. I started just posting them on social media, and people said, this quote is for me, you inspired. So originally I wasn't going to do the project, but it was just sort of, I guess, the social media audience, who pushed me and encouraged me to, do it.
All right. So, I'm glad to hear about the social media and the audience and how it has influenced you, especially as an introvert. I consider myself to be like an ambivert. Like I have my moments where I can be extroverted, but then there are times where I'm introverted. And especially, I believe the more that I focused on, like research, academia, incorporating ideas, especially you understand it as a doctoral student, you become more introverted because you're required to kind of, integrate everything that you learn and then to determine like, what's my mark? Like, how am I adding to the literature that already exists, And so I'm wondering, not only the audience and social media, but then also your family, but what was the catalyst that led to you saying, I'm really going to make sure that I follow through with the book, or even the process that you had to go through to completion? because again, it's almost like writing a book is very similar to like a dissertation. And once you get to that part of the doctoral process, you understand what I'm saying. But
yes.
you know, through writing this book that, something that you produce that really is from you can require time because it really causes you to think inwardly. So I'm wondering your process while writing this and what kept you going along the way.
Yes, that is a wonderful question. So what I've learned in life is having your why. Sort of your why pushes you. I'm sure before when you started your doctorate journey, you said, I want to have a why to see me through this journey. And even in the tough days, it's gonna push me to keep going. And my why was just my family, this project being for them, not to get glory from myself and, be an author, but really have something for them, have something for my children, have something that can stay in our name for generations. And it's really only the beginning because you never know where it could go. Maybe there could be an Oliver clothing line, or an Oliver fragrance, so this is really just the beginning. That's the first question. The second question, and I'm sure you know this as an author, there is a lot of processes you can go to producing a book. You can go online, you can upload your thoughts, and you can have a book. And I chose to go a different way. I chose to get an editor, because I'm not the best in grammar. So
It's okay. I had an editor as well, so no worries. It's
yes. So I got
it's about quality.
I got a wonderful editor, and it's kind of hard because you're kind of giving them your baby, and they'll make suggestions. They'll make suggestions. Sometimes you get humbled. Sometimes you clash heads, and it's really trusting in that person. And it really, I've been working with the editor about a year, and I started the project about 4 years ago. So really 3 years it's been being by myself and bringing this other person along to, sort of, and, she was really well because like in terms of the cover, in terms of, the formatting, she knows what sells. So, she's really helpful in the project coming to where it is now.
I'm so glad to hear that. And also, the process of humility, because true writers and authors are quite introspective and also have to think a lot before they speak because we're so used to conveying our words written or,
Yes.
and non-verbally through, but it's scribes, also from my perspective, which is the reason why I really like what you said about it being legacy driven, intergenerational driven, and it being about your kids. And you have two, if I'm able to say,
Yes.
awesome, handsome little sons and a
Thank you.
wife. And I'm happy to call you all family and cousins.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and to know that they will have dad's words of wisdom. So, and of course, I don't want to sound morbid, but even when you're not here, or when grandpa or great grandpa, and it's their children or their children's children or their children's children viewing the books, and they will have your life lessons, wisdoms that are within the book. And I think that's awesome because it's something that stands the test of time. People can share stories verbally, and we can always share the stories, as many of us know, especially in cultures where we pass on a lot of information through stories. At the same time, we know that it's like telephone. The story changes from each generation to the next, and depending on who it is. But the written word, it's already set in stone in black and white. At the same time, people are able to kind of make meaning of it and also find comfort through the words that resonate with them most, especially when it has to do with like personal development and words of wisdom. What I'm wondering is there a particular quote that you have in the book that really stands out to you, or maybe a few? It depends on what you feel comfortable sharing, because we want to make sure people are going to purchase the book as well.
So there are quite a few, but I'll tell you the main focus is on your purpose, finding your purpose. And there's quotes that most people like just because you haven't made it now doesn't make you a failure. And most
That's
people,
right.
I haven't made it to that level of success, but you're not a failure. Maybe it's not your plan, maybe it's God's plan. That's one of my favorite quotes because a lot of people bring it up to me. And let me just read another one. And it says, and this is one I like, it says, don't filter out your true beauty. And I say that because, everybody's on social media and everybody's putting filters on, you know, these little ears, and it's like that's not the way we were designed to be. You know, everybody has their true
Right.
beauty, and I believe a lot of times, you know, we filter it out, we change it, we alter it.
Right. I hear you. I think that's great. Let's discuss that quote a little bit more because
Yeah.
literally I was just watching a video yesterday, I believe it was, and it was an interview that someone was interviewing Genuine. And I know it might sound kind of like, hold on, it's a artist, music artist. However, they were asking him about his view of social media. And from his perspective, he was discussing how social media really did affect the sort of the status and the work and the diligence that was required to be an artist. Because, like, someone could go on social media, say, for example, the example he gave, he said a girl could get 2.5 million followers because she was twerking. But at the end of the day, there was an artist who spent years on their craft to produce one album.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for people to have a similar status and to have as many likes or maybe even more followers or more likes, depending upon what's popular during that time, what I'm wondering is, from your perspective, you can expound a little bit more on that wisdom, which is, to encourage people to really shine through with regards to who they are genuinely, not necessarily from the standpoint of popularity, but from the standpoint of what makes someone unique, but then also holds true to standards, principles. So what are your thoughts about that?
I think this is a loaded question.
Oh, it's good.
How I answer it. But I think society has what is called norms. You know, you should look a certain way, you should be a certain size, you know, should talk a certain way. And I think people try to live up to those norms, you know, to be popular, you know, and that's kind of where they filter out their, you know, them being unique. You know, even I think about in school, they don't really have art class anymore. But what about the artists? What about the people who can draw? You know, that's their gift. So then you try to put them in music, but they're artists. So then, you know, they get lost. And I think social media, I believe like 90% of it is a lie. So, you know, people, you know, I have nice cars that aren't theirs, all these trips, you know, maybe somebody get sponsored them. But I think we look at that of what they are and then we try to live up to it. So I think social media, I'd say it could be used for positive ways, you know. And people are making a living off like social media, YouTube. But then on the other hand, you know, it could be used, you know, for negativity. It could be used to shame somebody, body shame somebody. Could be used to hurt somebody. Somebody can use hurtful words. So I think even and as my kids get older, I'm gonna tread lightly on, you know, what they can view and what they're exposed to.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And so you're speaking to the influence that social media has, but then also utilizing social media as a platform in order to continue to perpetuate a message that is
Yeah.
going to be positive and uplifting. Because I totally agree with you, and I'm hearing what you're saying, because there's a part of me that sees how social media has had a negative effect on many generations that have started to utilize it, especially the younger ones, because of those particular sort of like social emotional protective factors that they're not fully aware of and haven't built yet. Meaning, like, a lot of them didn't have to fight in sandboxes and like learn what it means to skid their knee at recess and to make up afterwards, unless they're put in situations where they have to be more social, during those particular years of development and rearing. And so because they spend a lot of their time on tablets, on computers, on TVs, and a lot of their learning and emotional and psychological and relational learning happens through screens. It's like, how is that going to affect how they're going to interact with other people? And I think about that a lot, with regards to generations, because it's a part of me that wonders if they will know what it's like to really have to engage on a human level without the use of media. Like, I literally even thought about it the other day, because I was like, the way social media is so integrated in our lives nowadays, it really is the matrix. Like, are we able to unplug and be relevant?
Yeah. Because when we were kids, we were told, go outside and play, you know.
Exactly.
Outside,
Until the lights come on outside.
and then, you know, it was time to come in. But these
Right.
kids, no, they're in front of like you said, and sometimes the dangerous part is parents are working multiple jobs. So really the screens are raising the kids, and we don't know what subliminal messages are in there, what undercurrent things are in there. So we got to be very careful in what we expose our kids.
Right. I agree. And that's the reason why it's always a matter of, and there's so much research. And even as a family therapist and a counselor, when working with parents, it's always a matter of finding that balance that really is most beneficial to them, because I also see the benefit of utilizing some of the social media. Like when I found out about Gracie's Corner, I definitely was sharing it with my niece and nephews, and I told my sisters
Yeah.
because it was the use of music, but then also they still learned about colors, letters, words, numbers, and so there's a way for youth to be able to utilize, what is considered media in order to be able to learn at the same time, for them not to become robots, meaning like, I can't imagine what it would be like for, a generation to be more accustomed to connecting to AI versus a real human. Like, and to how does that translate to them being emotionally intelligent? Like, I know we're veering to like a different discussion, but it also is still relevant with regards to wisdoms. And I hear it from you, a perspective of a father who really wants to share wisdom with his audience from the perspective of a male perspective and as a father. And I think that's so beneficial because in our society, for a few different reasons. One, I think a lot of Black families need to see more fathers, and we need the presence of more male presence of wisdom. But then also, it's a way to be able to show that fathers can contribute and they have a voice, because I don't want to stereotype, but at the same time, usually, especially in brown families, the mother will always say, talk to your dad, but then the dad is going to say, just speak to your mom about it. And then the final word usually comes from mom.
Very true. Very true.
And so for a father who has a heart of a father, and I know that because I've, been, like family spaces with you and your wife and your children, to know that you really are a father that wants to be able to give into his children and to share that with your audience, I think is awesome. And so I'm wondering if you don't mind sharing, like from your perspective as a father, like what is it that fathers can even do? Like, not only through your book that you share, but in everyday life, to really show their presence within their families.
Well, I believe there's no sort of magic potion even to say be a good father, but the key word I think is education. It's reading books on fatherhood, talking to other fathers. That's one thing, especially men. They don't talk to other men. If you're going through struggles as a father, find a therapist, talk to them struggles you're going through in your home with your wife, with your kid. The key thing is just educate yourself and be willing and be open, being willing to be critiqued. Because a lot of people, oh, I won't do this, I want to do this. No, just be open to change and being critiqued, and just find the proper education. There's plenty of books out there on fatherhood. Just finding one and simple to read, finding a devotional.
Right.
So there's so many things you can do, and it's going to be different for everybody.
And I would also recommend you all purchasing the Book of Oliver as
Yes.
an addition to the to the books. Yeah, make sure you all purchase it, but because I believe it really would be a great addition with regards to wisdom, because life wisdom is relevant to relationships as well as relevant to self-development. And to add to what you're saying, like self-development and developing yourself as a person automatically translates into a person being the best self that they can when they show up in their relationships, whether it's being a spouse, or being a parent, or being a deacon at the church, or being a volunteer, or the work that we do at our jobs. Like, as long as we're constantly focusing on building ourselves as people and improving ourselves as people, then we show up as our best selves in all of our relationships and connections.
And I think too, people are scared of the word therapist. Like, no, go and talk to somebody, somebody that doesn't know you, somebody that's going to have an open view. And a lot of people don't know, sometimes their job may even pay for therapy. so you won't have to, it's a cost that you may not have to incur, but don't be afraid of that word therapist. Even if you think your life is perfect and everything is fine, go talk to somebody. I highly encourage.
Thank you so much for bringing up that particular point because, a lot of times when we think about life and development or even therapy, especially within our culture, we always look at it from the standpoint of it being negative. When the reality is, at least from my perspective, I like to focus on strengths and points of resilience. And, so sometimes people think that, therapy has to be stigmatized because it's connected to a particular label or diagnoses. But as a family therapist, we're focusing on the systemic perspective. And so that has to do with how does our world influence us? What's going on internally that's influencing others and how we view our world and how we think, our biopsychosocial and spiritual needs, like how are we focusing on that well-being? And so, it's so important for us to be able to note that improving in life means being able to speak to someone that can also help to enhance our lives. So sometimes it's not a matter of it being that there's an issue, but it could mean I just want to improve in this area because I'm aware that I could be better. Meaning like, there's always room for improvement is one of my quotes that I like. Now, it's not in the Book of Oliver, but again, the Book of Oliver has new and improved. I'm telling you, wisdom and quotes.
But there's a similar quote. It's funny that you say that. All success means is that you keep going. Most people have chase success and they stop. Oh, I have success, but no. It's like I released this book and now I'm like, now what can I do? What can I do next? What's my next?
Exactly. So, but then that's the question. So I'm going to ask you to answer it. Answer your own question, please, because.
So can you ask it again? Yeah, I kind of.
Oh, it's okay. So the question is, what is next? Because now that you've written the book, it's published. You're also doing like, author, spots where you're able to sign the book for people and to read, from the book. Like, so what's next?
So in kind of the final stages, a lot of, and this was the editors, a lot of my quotes, they didn't make it into the book. So I have so much more material and I'm figuring out what I can do with that. So maybe there'll be an extended version of there's a journal that goes along with the book that's completed.
Awesome.
We're working on that. I'm scheduling some more book signings because a lot of people have been asking about more book signings, and I look to go out and do more speaking, maybe in some schools, and wherever people want me to be, I will be there.
All right, that's great. So then for those viewers who are watching, if you all need an inspirational speaker, Anthony Oliver is the gentleman to contact. Now, how are people able to contact you as well as access your book, purchase your book?
Yes, so I will actually put my email and the link in the chat. I'll do that right now.
Yeah, and I'll make sure that it's posted on YouTube as well, Anthony.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We can keep moving along as I do this.
Yeah, because as you're sending it, if you can just share it verbally, because then that'll be helpful.
Yes. So perfect. My email is my name, Anthony, middle initial L, Oliver, with the numbers 4250, and that is at gmail.com. And I'll repeat it one more time. So my email is my name, Anthony L, Oliver, 4250 at gmail.com.
And then where are people able to purchase your book?
So good question. So it should be up on Amazon in the next couple of days, but you can actually buy it through the link, and I'll read it out. The link is http://bit.ly/the Book of Oliver.
Nice. So you have your own author website.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Okay, cuz I'm extremely proud, sincerely, extremely happy for you and excited. I'm so glad to be able to hear, all of the great things that are happening within my circle of support, I would say, amongst family, amongst friends, amongst community, because we all are, expressing our creativity and also expressing the, principles and the values within our life through the work that we are sharing with others. And, it's definitely an honor to say that I know Mr. Anthony Oliver, and who is married to, my cousin Jocelyn Janelle Oliver, and two awesome kids. I know at least one of them is probably going to be a football player because he just looks like he's a linebacker already. Like
Already at 2 years old.
sincerely, just put a football in his hand now. At the same time, I know that he's not limited to that, meaning that all of us are very multifaceted, and that's the part that I also appreciated about us as millennials, because we were encouraged to incorporate education, but we are also creatives. So for us to be able to utilize every single gift and talent and skill that God has given us, and to just to show the world that we're here to make a difference is just awesome.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah,
it's
it's so.
beneficial to us because I think, and I know Dr. Cunningham, you're and me are sort of the same age, so we're born right on that line of being millennials, and so
True.
kind of we have the tendencies of the older generation, but we're millennials. So I think that has helped
True.
us not be, sort of addicted to this computer and entertainment system. Because we're kind of, I don't want to say old, but we're kind of old school, just because we're right on that
But
line.
that's true. That is very true. I always say, like, even though I'm a millennial, I'm one of the older millennials. So there's a
Yeah,
part of me that understands, like, the silent generation, the baby
exactly.
boomers, and the, Gen X, and I can understand, their ideas, or when they discuss things like being a latchkey kid growing up, or what it meant for, people to play hopscotch, rather, and ride bikes and to climb trees, and we weren't just sitting inside and, like, staring at, laptops and screens all day, or playing video games. It was just different.
Yeah.
And so I completely agree with you. Like, I even remember, like, life pre MySpace, like before MySpace existed, before there was AOL dial up, like
Yeah.
that took forever before you could have internet. Like,
Oh
so
yeah.
I completely agree with you. And so, and I think that that's what's, so important about the Book of Oliver as well, because it helps people to realize, or to remember, the foundation of humanity and the foundation of what keeps a human spirit alive and well. Because, wisdom, is something that can transcend time, can transcend eras.
Yes.
And so it's necessary that we maintain wisdom, so that people don't get so caught up in the virtual reality that's created through social media. I mean, because even before there was social media, media was still lying about what truth was. I mean, MTV Cribs was a perfect example, right?
Yeah, yo, that is true. That is true. And
Yeah,
recently,
it's
have you ever seen the movie Real Player One? It's sort
no,
of
I
like
haven't seen that movie.
you need to
Let's
watch
discuss it. I
it.
love movies.
It's sort of like these kids live in this virtual world and everything. They go to school in this virtual world, and it's sort of like the Hunger Games, but in
Oh,
virtual. And I think that's what society is really coming to. Everything is and and they have like
right. That's true.
avatars in these virtual, and that's what they do. That is their whole life. So, audience, I recommend you checking that out. It's called Real Player One, and I'm sure
Real Player One.
you can find it on
Okay.
Netflix. You can find it on maybe Hulu, but definitely check it out because I think that's sort of what society is going to. Everything being in this virtual, world.
Yeah, understood. And and I definitely will. What I'm wondering is from your perspective, how are we going to also help people to maintain a balance? Again, respecting the fact that, these online platforms are necessary for continued connection or education, but then how are we going to still maintain that human connection from your perspective?
Yes, and I'm going to use a term from the Matrix. I would say unplug. Unplug
Mhm.
too long on these virtual, and I think you can get lost in sort of what is real and what is not. So to unplug, for kids, have play dates with other kids. Parents turn off your TVs, have shut off the Wi-Fi, have shutdown time, and have times where it's lost. And I say this all the time. You remember when we were younger, we had TGIF. Thank God it's Friday.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
They had shows like the Cosby Show, like and that was family time. It was time when
Mm.
families came together and they talked. So what's missing is like having conversations at the dinner table, and that's how you build up your communication skills. Now, not always talking to like a screen or always text, and don't always text. Call somebody every now.
Very true. Yes, because hearing someone's voice, you can tell the difference, about what
Exactly.
they're feeling, what they're expressing. I completely agree with you. And, ultimately, this conversation could last for a while. And just like I always do on my platform, is that we start off with discussing one thing and it ends up becoming like sort of like a web of different discussions that are very relevant for the time. But I think it's beneficial for us to show the relevance of what we're bringing to the table, but then also to be able to hear or to get a sense of someone else's perspective regarding how life works now. And because there's so much that is changing, especially rapidly, because of how much technology is developing over time, so it's going to constantly change our world and how we have to navigate, interacting with others. So I want to thank you again. And you all, again, sincerely, make sure that you purchase the Book of Oliver by
Yes.
Anthony Oliver. And again, you're able to contact him at anthonyloliver@gmail.com, or you can find his book on http://bit.ly/the Book of Oliver. And the information is also going to be found in the description on the YouTube page. And so, Anthony, I want to thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you being a part of Life Lessons with Dr. Cunningham.
Thank you so much for the privilege. And I'll use my main quote: "Your purpose is your power." If you know
That's
that,
awesome.
thank you.
And that's a great quote. Thank you so much for sharing that. And viewers, thank you so much for being a part of the episode today. Share some comments, like and share, and I'll see you all next time.